star of stage and screen, Alec Baldwin,
Oh,
renowned actor and Donald Trump impersonator galore, is going to be indicted for involuntary manslaughter in the death of his cinematographer. And I believe there will be another charge probably brought onto it because the director of the film was also hit with
no, they
when
dropped
he
that.
negligently fired a loaded gun.
He's under 2 counts.
They dropped this. They dropped the counts against the director for God knows what reason. But he does have 2 counts against him for involuntary manslaughter, which should have shown up a year ago. But finally, it looks like there will be some level of justice, and he has a civil suit against him as well from her family of the camerawoman.
Well, listen, leftists can finally rejoice because from what I understand, he made a deal with the district attorney that if he should happen to be sentenced to jail time, he's going to be going to jail dressed up as Donald Trump. I've never seen a district attorney work so hard to try and exonerate a suspect as the district attorney out there did.
Because they didn't want to do this. They have been trying, Hollywood has been trying to remediate his public image, and they have been trying to let people forget about this story. They have dropped this like a rock. They tried to make sure no one heard about this, and if they did hear about it, they only heard the positive things about Alec Baldwin and how this had to be an accident. And in fact, as we have seen, and it has been checked and rechecked and rechecked, the only way that bullet could have gone off is because he pulled the trigger and he was pointing the gun at her and he fired. This man is guilty of multiple crimes. He's negligent with a firearm. He needs to go to jail, and he needs to go to jail for a long time. He pointed a firearm, loaded or not, at a human being, and he pulled the trigger. I don't care what someone told him. The second he had that firearm, as we all know, and it's been well discussed, and even Hollywood, members of Hollywood have come out and said, no, you get handed that firearm, you check the firearm, you make sure it's safe, and you do not point it at a human being anyway. He knows that. He's been around Hollywood. That's why there's only been like 4 incidents with a firearm in the last 70 years of Hollywood. Atlanta is in my heart tonight. A lot of people may not be aware of this because the news media severely suppressed this in America. Atlanta is under threat of violence tonight. There's a bunch of insurgents. And when I say insurgents, I mean insurrectionists. I mean Antifa. I mean these autonomous zones in Atlanta that have called for a night of rage to attack civilians, human beings, our neighbors in Atlanta, because they don't like them. And anyone who thinks, Mike, you're just making that up, you're going too far, you're being hyperbolic, let me be very clear. I will show you exactly what I mean. This is from the Daily Mail, by the way. You have to go to the United Kingdom to find out what's happening in Atlanta tonight. Okay? And tonight, these guys, the defenders of the Atlanta forest, which is Antifa, they are insurgents. They have created an autonomous zone in Atlanta, and they are upset with the police, so they want to attack the police and their allies. That's the key words there. Police and their allies. What is an ally of the police? A law-abiding citizen. Someone who may not agree with the tactics of Antifa or BLM, the riots. They're the problem. And they're saying, no, we want you to go out in your neighborhood and attack the police and law-abiding citizens because they don't agree with these guys who are saying, we're trying to hug the trees in Atlanta. We've taken over the property of the city of Atlanta. They have an autonomous zone. They took property that isn't their own. They illegally broke every single law in Atlanta and the state of Georgia and the United States government and the Constitution because they wanted to, and anyone who disagrees with them is their enemy, and now they want to go out and fight those people, your neighbors, for daring to not listen and obey every word they say.
Exactly.
Speaking of logbooks, they said, "Oh, there's no logbook for the house in Delaware either." Well, guess what? Secret Service keeps a logbook.
Yeah, and they won't
Even though
reveal
nobody
all
else does. That's how we know Louis Farrakhan was at the Obama house 8 times during the election cycle when he said he wasn't.
I know, but let me go back to the U Penn Center. Here's something that I found in the research most people don't realize. You guys have heard me talk about the Confucius Institute before. And for people who don't know what that is, the Confucius Institute is a group this is funded by China. They go to colleges around the world, mostly in the United States, and they pay at least $250,000, sometimes $500,000 a year to have their experts about China go into your college to teach students about how great the Communist Party of China is, the CCP. That's their job. Teach culture and how great China is now. It has been determined by about 60 countries in the world and currently under investigation with the DOJ right now that it's actually a spy agency. This is how they have spies infiltrating our colleges. They had them, huh?
Fang?
Yeah. Well, actually, she went there in the University of Delaware, where Eric Swalwell went. Fang went there, and they had a Confucius Institute. That's how they met.
You don't say.
No. So that's how this thing operates. And wouldn't you know that 1 year before Biden showed up at the University of Pennsylvania, the Confucius Institute had already been at the University of Pennsylvania. It got shut down 1 year before Biden showed up. Here's the thing. If it's a spy agency and their job is to create spies and to infiltrate, can you tell me in the University of Pennsylvania that none of the personnel from the Confucius Institute were still at the University of Pennsylvania, that none of their people had infiltrated, say, became a janitor at the University of Pennsylvania, that any of their potential spies that they turned, like Eric Swalwell might have been, let's say it that way, that they had another professor or another student who was at the university who might have had access to those offices, or a janitor or working as a janitor and have access, know that Biden is there and say, hey, he left some documents. Let's go through them. They cannot honestly and openly say that was impossible, considering these documents were sitting in a box, not a safety box, not a lock box, in a cardboard box at the bottom of a closet of an empty room.